What's going on, everybody? It's Illuminastic, and I'm even more excited to be here than usual because I feel like I've really got a banger on deck for you guys tonight. It's one of the most important, it's some of the most important subject matter I think that I've come up with for this channel and any live stream that I've ever done. There's going to be a blog that accompanies this, and this light stream will probably also be carved up and graphics added, and we'll make a video out of it. So keep your eyes out for that, because I'll probably, flesh the ideas out a little bit more and whatnot. But basically, I woke up today, and I was feeling a little bit maybe frustrated, thinking, like, how do I continue to improve my content, and am I going to be able to just keep coming up with new ideas? And definitely, because, I do most of my content off the top of my head. I don't often go to other sources to try to gather information. I do research and stuff, but you know what I mean? It just comes out of my intuitive processes. So today I was thinking, how can I create more value in my content? And then I asked myself, well, how do you create value? You create value by solving a problem. So the bigger the problem, the more value you can create. And so I thought, okay, well, then what are the biggest problems that humanity faces? And of course, that is a pretty problematic question to ask, because it is, very sophisticated. There are a lot of different answers. But what I found, I think, is that you can kind of condense and distill. You can make an aggregate and then condense that aggregate and distill it. And then you're able to come up with a couple of fundamental roots that all of the other problems arise from. And so what I came up with was greed and hatred. Pretty much every major problem that humanity faces, and also that is solvable, is rooted in either hatred or greed, right? So, but then I thought, that's not really quite the essence of this, though. Behind both of those things, there's something else. Fear. Okay, so fear of what? More than anything, this is the reason for religion. This is the reason why people are so invested in politics. It is fear of the unknown. And what is the greatest unknown of all? Death. Right? So I had distilled humanity's greatest problem down to one single influence, and that is fear of death. And it immediately hit me that psychedelics have been shown to be very, very efficacious at resolving anxiety, death anxiety, right? Cancer patients have been given psilocybin, terminal cancer patients, and then there was a study at Johns Hopkins where they were looking at, just regular anxiety patients with death anxiety comorbidities. And so it hit me that I needed to do more analysis. And so I thought, okay, so where do we get this culture from? What are its origins? Where did it come from? Well, if we're going to consider art, music, politics, particularly democracy, philosophy, most of the constituent parts of our modern culture, most people would trace back to ancient Greece, a sort of 1500-year golden period where, the arts were exploding and philosophy was exploding and there were political innovations and all of this stuff. And I thought, okay, so what guiding light did the ancient Greeks have that we have lost? And the answer was the mysteries, the Eleusinian mysteries. In fact, there was a Greek philosopher whose name was Status, interestingly and ironically enough. But Status once said that life is completely unlivable in the absence of the mysteries. Well, what were the mysteries? And the particular mysteries in question are the Eleusinian mysteries. And so the fundamental thing of importance at the Eleusinian mysteries were two things that may be one thing. One is the kykeon, which was a beverage that is suspected to be either an ergot beer, and that is supported by the fact that there are people who have had their dental analysis. Make it sound like they're living people, but skulls found, teeth analyzed. And ergot was found there. So consumption of ergot was kind of proven. And there have been a couple of other things. There have been like vessels found that contain some ergot residue and whatnot. So it is, pretty certain that was at least one of the versions of this beverage. I have often suspected acacia with Syrian rue. Mostly because not only is Syrian rue abundant throughout Greece and the Mediterranean, but acacia is still sprinkled leaves upon the graves of Freemasons, high-ranking Freemasons when they die. And that, I would assume, is because of its DMT content. This is usually why plants are sacred, either because they're deadly poisonous or because they are psychotropic in some way or another. And so the lineage from the ancient Greek mysteries down to modern schools of Freemasonry and the OTO, for example, the Epoptiae was a secret knowledge, basically in the same way that most modern secret societies have an inner order and an outer order. The Eleusinian mysteries had the same thing, and so higher-ranking initiates received knowledge that was called the Epoptiae. And there is a rank in the OTO, for example, today that is called Epopt of the Illuminati. And that's the 8th degree, which is the first degree where you're really starting to get any valuable information. It's the first tier of being a real initiate. And so this beverage was psychoactive. It's basically a certainty. And as if, to bolster my position, I guess, like manna from heaven, I remembered that Plato had said that the greatest benefit of receiving this apoptiae, this secret knowledge that is conferred by this psychedelic beverage, the kykeon, or the kykeon. There are others in the different mysteries, but we're just talking about the Eleusinian mysteries for now. It conferred upon him knowledge that resulted in his fear of death dissolving. And so I had gone from this original intuition in the morning, this question of how do I create value? And then I had come to this realization that it is fear of the unknown and fear of death that is driving all of the evils in Western culture. And then I was able to ascertain from that psychedelics are the thing that is missing. And it brought me full circle back to ancient Greece with Plato saying that the thing that psychedelics did for him that was of the greatest value was to assuage his fear of death. And so that was a very gratifying cycle of intuition and research. And I think it's absolutely true that psychedelics are and I mean, I pause because I almost feel ridiculous repeating it because I think so many of us know this at this point. And of course, it's not just that they alleviate the fear of death, right? There's all sorts of changes that are initiated in the individual when they come into contact with these entheogenic substances. Entheogen means, God within. And so, this awakening of this divinity or this concept of divinity, I think something like 55% of atheists that smoke DMT, or actually the number is 80% of people, at least in the most recent study that I read, that smoked DMT that were atheists were not atheists anymore when they came out of the DMT trance, I guess you could call it. And so this is important also because just as the Eleusinian mysteries did not necessitate that someone adopted dogma, there was no patriarchal God to fear ruling over them in the sky. It was just the result of having undergone a process that exposed them to a greater consciousness. And through that experience, they were able to overcome their fear of death. Plato conceived of the atom like 2,000 years before it was provable. And almost certainly for the same reasons, through the same method that he was able to overcome his fear of death. So, pretty remarkable stuff. What's going on? Why is this? Oh, that's the problem, huh? How come no one told me in the we have had another audio source playing all this time, haven't we? No? No? Okay, that's good. I think, part of the reason that psychedelics are so good at helping people to overcome barriers to growth and to transcend fear, because that really seems to be at the very heart of all human suffering. I mean, I did some research on hoarding a little while back, and sure enough, fear and anxiety are what drives hoarding. And so what is greed? Greed is basically just a modality of hoarding. It's hoarding in God mode. Fear. And so I think that it really is as simple as exposure to the ultimate reality, especially assuming that psychedelics deactivate the filters in the nervous system so that we are able to perceive a greater spectrum of reality. We are forced into that confrontation with the infinite and with the unknown. There is no ability to turn it off. You can't say no. Once you have bought the ticket, you have to take the ride. And there's no way to close the floodgates once they've been opened. And that's another reason why I think psychedelics are so much more effective and powerful than any other modality or approach.